Stories, I'm a fool for your love.
Hey everybody, Rock here. Thanks for joining me again. It seems like this can be a bit long, but I really appreciate you guys tuning in to watch and to support me. Your support has meant a lot, and that's one of the major drive force or fuels that I have used to continue. I had to take a couple of days off to postpone some of the shooting just because I needed to wrap my head around some of the thoughts. And also, you know, it gets to be heavy after a while. You start thinking about all these negative thoughts because I really want to paint a really good picture. And the only way I can paint that picture is by using the darkest ink I have inside of me. It's just to give you a real feel for what it feels like to be a survivor of sexual assault or sexual abuse. In the last video, as I was wrapping up, the video kind of cut short, so I apologize for that, but I didn't want to restart. I just wanted to build upon that. And I talked about how we started getting great support from my mother's side. We were all invited at my aunt's place in St. Charles, and we all gathered. There were a lot of them showed up, a lot of support. And this was like the first time I was talking to them about my story, and I remember being super emotional. Like, I had an aunt ask me, why didn't you come to us? Why didn't you come earlier? We could have helped you. And you know, and I understand why victims stay silent. You know, it's a lot of self-preservation. You don't want to be vulnerable. I didn't want to be vulnerable. You know, I didn't want the people around me and the people in my community, my friends, my mother, I didn't want them to know that I was being abused. I also was protecting my father. And in some subconscious way, protecting our lifestyle. I knew, after watching that 60-minute episode, I knew that we would lose everything. I knew that it would cause a great deal of turmoil and hardship in our family. So I chose to remain silent for the next couple of years after that. But anyways, and as we're at my aunt's place and the adults, they're arguing amongst themselves about, you know, the signs, and he's always been that way, and blah, 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 blah. I had one aunt say something that always resonated with me. It always stuck with me. And she said, "Hate the sin, not the sinner." She said that. It brings me goosebumps just thinking about it. I thanked her a few years ago in person just because it really stuck with me. And that's kind of when I started forgiving my father at that young age. So the whole family's helping us. We're now moving into low-income housing. I've got the new bed, and time is, as time does, it's rolling. Time is ticking. I've started seeing counseling. We still have no contact with my father. It was like a liberation for me, but also a bit of a dangerous liberation because I didn't have my father there to keep me in check. So it was like I was like a wild horse on a stampede, doing all sorts of stuff. Drinking and drug use and my first pregnancy scare and stuff like that. All teachable moments, I guess. All teachable moments. Around 9 months, my mother started contacting my father again. Now, in the last video, I mentioned that he was on parole. I believe that that's the wrong term. I think out on bail is what I meant to say. And as much as, you know, so when we went back to school, we started school again. Other than a few handful of occasions where I actually heard of people making fun of either my father or me behind my back, there wasn't too much. A lot of questions, right? A lot of questions like, do you know who are the other people that your father abused? Are you one of them? Did your dad, you know, abuse you sexually in the ass? Are you gay? is he gay? I heard people say, your dad's an asshole. I heard other people say, you guys are all the kids are all liars. He would never do that. You hear all that. You hear the hearsay or through the grapevine. You hear all that sort of stuff, eh? And that in itself was, painful. And it's painful to hear, right? Because I knew that it would be going public with that story back then would be difficult, but I never imagined how difficult it would be. Luckily for me, my friends were very supportive. They came over to my house. They said, "We want you to come back to school. We miss you. We want you to, just come back to school, be fine." They had my back, so that was good. I did experience, because of that, as you can imagine, a severe... It was almost like it gave me attention deficit disorder. In class, I could not focus on the schoolwork. I could not focus on what the teachers were saying. My thoughts were bouncing in my head at 1,000,000 miles an hour. One of the things that saved me back then was I started working out at the gym with a friend of mine. And that was one of the things that really kept me sane throughout all of that. So my mother is, at this point, months pass by, and my mother started reconnecting with my father, which I'm not thrilled about. For a variety of reasons, and the main reason is I don't want to get abused again. I don't want to go through that again. And she starts connecting with him again, and she's considering taking him back. And her family's like, "Don't take him back. You're not helping your kids by taking him back." Whether or not that's true or not is irrelevant, but it's what they said. And when she decided to take him back, her family, the ones that supported us and all that, they kind of pulled the plug on that. And they wrote us a letter. Well, maybe not us, but they wrote a letter to my mother, but as it was read to me, I took it a bit personally back then. And it read something like this, the gist of it. It's a long letter. I don't know the whole thing, but I remember saying, "If you take him back, you will not be welcome here." Now, whether or not that meant she would not be welcome there, or we as a family would not be welcome there, I'm not sure what the intention was behind that. All I know is that the result was that we disconnected. My mother disconnected, and we followed. And as we're reconnecting with my father, he has not been sentenced yet. And I'm not enjoying this, really. Like, I don't see my father the way I used to see him. Things have changed. I've gotten almost a year out on my own as a young man, figuring out stuff through trial and error. And I think my father has this idea that once we're back together, all of us, the family life is just going to resume. And my mom, I think, had this intention, right? Well, we're a family. We're going to be a family again. And even though to this day I am reconnected with them after our fallout, 5 or 6 years ago, which I'll talk about later, even though I am reconnected with my parents, it's never been how it was before, pre-arrest. It's never been the same. It can never be the same, and I'm realizing that. And as much as I am striving towards this ideal family in my mind, I'm coming more and more to the realization that it doesn't exist. I have to make peace with the fact that my family's not ever going to be as close as it once was. And even if that hurts, it's out of my control. What I can control is how close I am with my family, with my wife, with my daughter, with my friends, I can control that. Well, I should say I can control my behavior around that. I can will myself to being better, which is what I've been doing. So after they pulled the plug, my extended family on my mom's side. Oh, and also I would like to add that we did not have contact with my father's side. I think a few of them, a couple of them treated me as a liar. Verbatim, almost. I'm paraphrasing, but I think it's verbatim. You made up these stories because your father wouldn't buy you a car, is what one of them said. Another one said, and I heard this through another one of my uncles who I trust, about another uncle. He said, well, what you went through is, well, what he went through is nothing. That's not a big deal. Just dismissing it, right? Which leads me to believe that he was also a victim of abuse. And now that the story is public, he is having his own issues with dealing with what happened to him, which is why his defense mechanism is to say, well, it's nothing, right? Maybe, I'm speculating. So my father goes to jail, he's sentenced, he goes to jail, and my mother decides that she wants to move to be closer to him so that she can go visit him. At first I stay behind, and later on I move with my mother and my brother. I miss them, you know. I stayed in Sturgeon, and then they moved to Newmarket, and then I joined them for the new term, and I went to school with my brother in this new school. We visited my father. It was cool, you know. And in hindsight, as I'm talking to you about that now, I think that it's a part of me is like, it's kind of interesting to visit your parents in prison. I mean, how many of you can say that you visited your parent in prison? Not that it's cool. I'm not condoning that everybody should go to jail or have a parent go to jail, but I think that it was kind of interesting. I'm going to end it there for now. I want to talk to you guys in the next video, and I believe it will be my last one, but I want to talk to you about my father trying his old games and the disconnection we had with them. And then that would be pretty much it. And then I'll probably have one more video after that, just about my final thoughts. As always, I appreciate your support. Please share the video. I hope it helps you or somebody you know that's going through something like this. My intention is not to hurt my father. My intention is to tell my story. It has nothing to do with him. So if you're watching, it has nothing to do with you. It's all about me. You have to understand that. It's not an attack on you. It's just me trying to explain my own story. Thank you so much. I love you guys. Have yourselves a great day. Bye-bye.